team, it's time for the Daily Detangler. Do you have empathy? Do you have empathy for executives? In this Daily Detangler, let's talk about that. I've been reflecting on what Architect put out for mindset shifts. And I was thinking about Catalyst as he's navigating our client and the mindset of Catalyst that's aligned to the executives. And I put some time into thinking about my own experience with executives and the empathy that I have. I'm going to talk about those mindset shifts, the idea of energy, and then outcomes. A new mindset can drive new results. In times of change, mindset matters. How do you keep your mindset in check? Do you go through a daily process to help you with your mindset? I don't know about you, but I find that I have to be proactive at that. I'm way more wired to be negative. And also, I'm way more comfortable at lower altitude levels and dealing with and working with lower level people in an organization. So the challenge with that is we're driving change. We're driving change top down. And I have to have empathy for executives. Architect put out 7 mindset shifts a while ago. I think it's helpful for me to revisit these as part of my daily ritual, my daily habit, to not only review the mindset shifts and the principles, but also create some space through meditation to think about what's happening around me and also where we're heading. One of the key areas that I find that I have to work on the most is embracing empathy for executives. One of the things that Catalyst has shared is executives are people too. They just have a different perspective. While many times I think about an executive in terms of their fame and fortune and how much money they make, that's very short-sighted. The idea of embracing empathy for executives means going beyond the idea that they make money and make a lot of money, quote unquote, but thinking about their role and what their accountability is. Well, it's easy to have a nice, neat picture of the executive level with these faceless executives and just say, you know, these are them. We learned from our pronoun exercise that it's important to be clear on who we're talking about. And when I think about putting myself in the executive's shoes, so to speak, and trying to understand how they engage the world around them, just like I have to engage the world around me, or how they make decisions, just like I have to make decisions, and how those executives might have to prioritize time. I also have to prioritize my time. They're people too. And, you know, this is a nice, neat, clean picture that might work in marketing or presentation land. But what if executives thought this way? What if they thought in terms of ecosystems? This is a airline operation mapped out through an organizational network analysis, which simply means the value exchange that happens in an organization and all the flows of information, the alignment of people and process and technology. And when I think about executives, they're responsible for making sure that this works. They're also 100% accountable for making sure that this is productive. This ebb and flow of just one thing in operation, airline operations, you can see the pressures here, the idea of what's helpful and what's holding them back. The idea of that information is flowing, and this is a simple picture. And executives have an ecosystem view. And one of the things that Architect talked about is when it comes to that mindset shift, it's consistent that executives have a focus on resisting the negative energy around them. While they focus on the ecosystem, there's a lot of challenges. We're wired, and I'm wired, I find, especially to focus on the negative. Um, Executives counter that by resisting that negative to focus on the forward state vision. They also tend to focus on key principles. And the more I embrace our principles, like having courage or trusting the process that I'm naturally more weak in, the more I realize that the principles are guardrails that help me guide my decisions. Executives also consistently put the outcome ahead of themselves. Well, the ecosystem, the sum of the parts is greater than the whole. And that reminds me of the idea that Catalyst shares about being heroic. Executives have to be heroic. They have to think holistically about that ecosystem. They have to engineer the parts to all work together. They have to confront reality, that's the R, and ensure that people are factored in the right way. They have to think in terms of the ongoing operation of the company and the forward lean and where the company is headed and the ecosystem within. That's the O. They have to be impactive in every interaction to sell the vision and to communicate where things are going. And then they have to be collaborative and suspend their cognitive bias to overcome any organizational drag. One of the things that I thought about as I was working on my own executive empathy was Elon Musk and SpaceX. I mean, here's a guy who took on the whole entire space industry and said, here's a vision. He's from South Africa. I've spent a lot of time there. That's not what you'd think of as the most innovative place, unfortunately. I've been there a lot. And I was thinking about how does a leader, how does an executive like Elon Musk, obviously he's innovative and he's somebody who sees a vision, like Jeff Bezos at Amazon a long time ago. But how does somebody like Elon Musk have this perspective to take on the industry of the space industry? And I thought back to the mindset shifts that Architect put out, and he talked about the need to assemble the components into a broader view, and also centering on those principles and guiding decision making and assuming personal accountability and having discipline to filter and manage inputs. And somebody like Elon Musk has to understand the whole space industry and make the right decisions and fight the legacy view. And if you look at this Dragon capsule, this was since the space shuttle 40 years ago, this was the first space crew certified, NASA certified shuttle to carry humans in 40 years. Could you do that? I know I couldn't have done that. How do you even do that? How is that even possible to do that? I'm in awe of that. And that's the accountability. I mean, I have a hard enough time being accountable to myself and our team sometimes. How do you take accountability for billions of dollars, trillions of dollars in people's lives and space? And it's like, wow, that's just amazing to me. And so on this detangler focusing on empathy, I summarized what Architect had put together as I was thinking about SpaceX, and the idea of empathy, the ability to role play, to empathize, to put the outcome ahead of self, to define the information and people requirements, to resist negative energy while focusing on the journey, to assemble the components into the broader view, and use key principles to guide decision making. the level of personal accountability and discipline to filter what matters, and then the commitment to not only stakeholders and investors, but to the future state to change, the commitment to change. And that reminds me of our principle of the experience. It's the experience stupid. Driving out the future state requires that experience, but it also requires a heavy dose of courage, the ability to connect the dots and lead with the you and get it right. It's not about being right, it's about getting it right. So that's a perspective of executives that I hadn't thought about before. Have you? Have you thought about the walking a mile in their shoes, or being in charge of a $20 billion company, so to speak, and being accountable to that? Have you reached out to Architect as a business leader and a business owner and unpacked with him what are some of the things that he's focused on and concerned about, and the idea of a change agency? I encourage you to do that. Thanks so much for your time today, and I'll see you on the next Daily Detangler.